before I do, I would like to have a word of prayer, because it's important. We've been told time and time again by our leaders, by the prophets, to prepare. And it doesn't make any difference if you're LDS or not. Being prepared is the key thing. God loves everyone. We're all His sons and daughters here upon the earth. We're here to help each other. So I've been trying to get some of these classes put together. I'm trying to have professionals come and give these lessons, as well as some myself, so that we can gain more knowledge and understanding as to what's happening in the world and why we need to prepare. Right now, you can see we have a deluge of water and stuff. And have any of you been farmers? Okay. Can you plant your crops now? No, you cannot. And Max has been around for a while. I'll let him explain his story to you. And again, please raise your hand. Feel free to answer or to ask any questions. Sorry, not answer. He's got the answers. But we'll do that. So I'm going to say a prayer. Our kind eternal Father in heaven, we are indeed grateful unto Thee for everything that we are blessed with, for our families and our health and strength, and for the gospel and the part that it plays in our lives. We are grateful unto Thee, Father, for Thy Son, Jesus Christ, and for the sacrifices He has made for us. We are grateful, Father, too, for the Scriptures which have been given to us to help us to prepare to meet Him again and to be in Thy presence. We ask Thee, Father, to send Thy Spirit at this time to be with us, that we may be sensitive to the information we will be given, that we may better be prepared to help our brothers and sisters throughout the world, and to look after our families and our friends and our neighbors. Father, we ask Thee at this time to please send Thy Spirit, and we say these things in Jesus Christ's name. Amen. 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 Okay, Max, you're on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I just love doing this. I've done it, I don't know how many times in the last few years. I grew up in Cache Valley. Went on a mission to Peru. And when I got down there, I got sent out to this area where there was no running water. And a big truck would come up, and they had big oil barrels out in front of their houses with no top on them. And they'd just come out, and for about 5 cents, they'd fill up their barrels of water. And that's the water they had for drinking, for cooking, for washing. And gee, I grew up here in Utah, and it wasn't like that here. And so that's probably one of the most important things I learned on my mission is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And in my final interview with I ended up in Colombia after Peru, and my mission president was a professor from Utah State University, which is where I had gone for my first year. And in our final interview, he says, "So what do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I want to go back to Utah State, and I want to go out in the health fields." And he said, "Have I got something for you?" He said, "As soon as you get back there, you go see W.W. Smith, and you get out and you learn all you can about public health, and then you get back down here and help these poor people." That was my instructions. My last instructions. I got home on a Saturday night. Monday morning, I was in W.W. Smith's office, and that afternoon, I was in my first public health class. And I have never looked back. And what a great life it's been for me, because that I learned what I needed to do. And boy, I love it. I love what I do. So I graduated from Utah State in public health, went right into the U.S. Public Health Service. It was during the Vietnam era. And I could either get drafted and go that way, or I could join up and get a commission with the Public Health Service and put my talents to work with the Public Health Service. So I put in 22 years with the Public Health Service and retired. And I retired on March 31st at midnight, and I started my next job at 8 o'clock the next morning at Bear River Health Department up in Logan. So I barely had time to get over the mountains and into Logan, but worked there for 17 years, and the last half of my time there I started doing humanitarian work. I finally got that opportunity to take what I'd learned back down to Peru and Colombia and Latin America, and started doing that, and oh, what a joy that is. If any of you ever have those kind of opportunities to get out and go to third world countries, don't pass up on those opportunities, because they're terrific. But I've learned work. I've worked in 10 countries on assignment with the church, and then I've done others with other groups. And recently, I was just back in Nebraska and Iowa with the flooding that's going on there. It's a disaster area. And went back there to see if, with a team of people to see if there's something I could do there. And I learned that I wasn't able to do much, but I did learn a lot. The Corps of Engineers was there trying to pump out some of the water so they could restore their water to their homes, and they didn't want any help. They didn't, and so I went to the school system because we wanted to try and keep the high school open, and they didn't have any water, so the National Guard brought in water in water buffaloes. So I said, well, I can disinfect that water and get that going. And they said, no, you're not going to touch our water. My job is to make sure nobody touches this water. So I kind of lost there. In the last couple of days, I drove a truck and drove food around from one city to the other. But I learned a lot, and I brought it back. And I'm on up in Cache Valley. I'm on the council up there. Went in and talked with our manager, and I learned enough. I think we can figure out how we can deal with volunteer groups if we have issues here. But we're never going to have problems here. We've got the best water in the world here, just about. I've tested water from the Amazon River to the Philippines to the outback in Australia. I've been in 24 states in the U.S. and about 14 countries, and we have about the best water there is on earth, and one of the safest places to live. In fact, an article came out a while back from Washington, D.C. saying, who's prepared? That was the title of this. Who's prepared? And they said, a few years ago we said 20% of the people in the United States are prepared, meaning they've got a plan and they've got a 72-hour kit and they're ready to face a disaster. And they said, well, as we evaluate it now, we're down to 6%. And that's nothing to write, this is just quoting the article, and that's nothing to write home about, since 3% are Mormons and they prepare without being told to do so by the government. And then I look around my communities here and say, well, what percent are we prepared? And I'm thinking it's probably less than 10% of those that I've worked with. So we've got a lot of work to do. One reason we're not so prepared is because we just don't have disasters. And so when we have a disaster, they say, here's what you should have: food and water, clothing, batteries, guns, cash, fuel, and medicine. Get those there. But any list you look at, water is in the top 3 things that you've got to have ready for a disaster, and if it happens. And I don't know, there's some mystique about water. I've taught hundreds of people, and so many just sit there and say, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to take care of my water. So that's kind of my mission, is to get out and teach what I can, what I know about water. So first, let me tell you a few facts. And these are facts that I've gotten from the government, from the United Nations. Water is essential for life. It's essential for almost everything: health, food, energy, transportation, nature, leisure. Virtually every product made on earth requires water. And we are really spoiled here. We really are. According to the UN and the World Health Organization, 80% of diseases in developing nations stem from consumption of and exposure to unsafe water, which kills more than 25,000 people every day. 25,000 people every day. 2.2 million children will die this year alone from dehydration caused by diarrheal disease, 80% of them before their 5th birthday. And many countries lose 1 out of every 5 children. Boom, gone. Half of the world's population lacks adequate water purification systems. Women and children, this is mostly in Africa, spend an average of 200 million hours per day collecting water. 200 million hours a day. And many of those girls and men can't go to school. They can't get an education because they're out hauling water for maybe 5 miles to their home for their family. And the women are assigned to do that in most of these countries. Half of the world's hospital beds are occupied by patients suffering from waterborne disease. All the hospital beds in the world, half of them are because of bad water. 1.8 billion people lack access to fresh water supply. This one gets me. More people in the world own a cell phone than a toilet. Think about it. The water crisis claims more lives from disease than any war claims through guns. And what do we hear every day in the news? Guns, guns, guns. They're killing people. The water, or lack thereof, is killing more than the guns. So why am I sharing this with you? This isn't our problem here. Until we have a disaster, then these statistics will become our statistics. How many of you are willing to give up 1 out of 5 of your children or your grandchildren? That's a hard thing to think about. So we need to be prepared. So from what I've learned, I want to share with you some ways that we can prepare. And I've got handouts if anybody, some people have come in and didn't get handouts. Anybody else? I'm kind of going through this.
Go ahead.
Would you do that? I'm kind of following this through. On the front page it says there's a 3-tier system to water preparedness. Okay? Number 1 is a grab-and-go system because when I was back in Nebraska, some people were given 5 minutes to run out the door of their house because there was a wave from the Missouri River coming in, like a tsunami caused by big ice breaks that were hitting and just wiping out houses. And they were running, telling people, and they ran out of their house. So, say a trailer full of chlorine or something rolls over on the freeway, and the flag goes up, and they say, everybody from this street go north, everybody from this street go south. Just get out of there, because you're going to, and within 20 minutes, you may not be able to breathe. That could happen any day. So you need something you can just grab and take with you. And you can, these soda bottles are wonderful bottles for that. Just clean them up, sanitize them. They've got a good lid on them. They're an excellent, excellent plastic bottle to use. Milk jugs, never. Worst thing to store water in. They still have milk protein in them. They have a terrible pour cap on them, and they're designed to disintegrate. So I told this in one class, and one guy said, I got 300 of those in my basement. I said, I'm sorry, do they leak? He said, yeah, they leak all the time. Did you have a question?
So, on your distilled waters, are they the same caliber of plastic?
They're basically the same, yeah. I have to buy distilled water from my wife's CPAP machine, and they're the same. They're just designed, they just put water in instead of milk. So they don't have the milk protein. They're safe to store water, but they're going to leak.
They still break down.
They just break down. They're not going to last very long. So short term with that kind of a bottle, but not with milk. They could last short term but not long term. I have a bunch of these laboratory type bottles. These are wonderful bottles that I keep cases of these. My son-in-law was working at a factory that was using these, and they come triple sterilized, triple layers. and one of the layers broke down, and they told my son-in-law to haul this truckload of these to the dump. They still had 2 layers of sterilized, so he hauled them to my house. So so those are excellent. So there's a lot of good things you can have to grab and go. This 5-gallon container, full, weighs about 40 pounds. That's not bad to pick up and put in your car. You can put the spout on it. You can use it different places. So you wouldn't want one any bigger than this for a grab and go, but that one will work. So those are excellent ones to have stored.
I've got those for camping, but I store them empty.
Live and learn, right? Yes.
You might hit it, but on those, do you fill them as tight as you can and keep the air out, or does that not
It
matter?
depends on where you're going to store them, and I am going to hit that. If you store them indoors where it's warm, you want to fill them just to the very top, just as high as you can. If you store them somewhere where there's a potential for freezing, you've got to back off about 15%. Now on these big barrels, there's arrows right here. That's the freeze level on the barrels. That's about a 15% right there. So if you're storing this outside, that's the freeze level. So don't go over that. If you're storing them inside, and I just went to my neighbor's this week, and we filled his in his basement just about to where the cap was touching, because you have much less chance of contamination if they're very full.
How about here in your garage? Think it'd freeze?
In my garage in Cache Valley, I have water in this size that never freezes. It would take 40 below zero to freeze a barrel. So sitting out in a cold climate outside, it'll freeze. In a garage, it doesn't in mine, and mine isn't even insulated. So I store mine pretty full in the garage and in the house. Maybe, go down a little bit, but it's gonna take 3 weeks of 40 below zero to freeze one of these. I said that, and I had a guy in a class last month that said, "Oh, I had one of those freeze one time out on the farm." I said, "Wow." I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard of it, but it could happen. So grab and go. Any questions? Have something you can throw in your car and take with you. Next is storing at home. Now, Jamie talked about what just happened in Sandy a few weeks ago, where their water was contaminated, and they said, don't drink the water. Don't drink it. Even boiling, a lot of times things get in the water, and you can't even boil things out. So sometimes you just can't drink it. So we should have some of this water stored in our house to get us by for a week or 10 days even. You should have something. I even have something over here I was going to show you. You should at least have a few cans of dehydrated water. So if something happens, you just have to add water to this. You have a gallon of water. Yeah. But you should have something. Now personally I think these barrels are the most efficient, take up less space, because you can put, a lot of people have a bunch of these, and if you they don't stack very well. They go on, you might get 6 in a box, and then you just have these sitting all over, and this would hold something like 175 of these bottles equivalent. So, nice to have some like this, but storing in a barrel is really, I think, a very efficient way to go. They're not expensive. You can get them on sale for, they usually sell for around $50. You can get them on sale for $40 in the spring when a lot of places have sales. And these are designed for storing water. The blue is one thing, the blue has a good reason. It's kind of the international symbol of drinking water, but it also prevents UV light from entering. So the color helps a lot there. So about everything I've got is blue, and that kind of signifies that's water for drinking. And so I recommend this. In fact, where I used to work, we would purchase these full of chlorine dioxide, which was a sanitizer used to clean water, similar to putting bleach or something like that. And so I would, when they finished with these, I would take them and triple clean them all out, and take them to all my neighbors and teach them how to do it. And then I give them a little kit with it with a bung wrench and a hose, and that's really all you need. So let me go over this really quick. My recommendation how you should store these. Number one, you got to figure out where it's going to be before. Well, you can. I take them out of my driveway and clean them out. If you buy one of these new, it is basically sterile inside, because I've been to the companies that make these, and when they mold these, they mold them at about 1300 degrees. And at the time they do it, these holes in the top are called bungs, B-U-N-G. And the bung caps, when they mold them, they put these right in at that temperature and they tighten them down. And they're basically sterile. However, people have told me that when they fill them up, sometimes they see little slivers or beads of plastic float up to the top. You don't want to store those in there, so I recommend you put some good clean water in. You can just pick them up. I can just pick them up and shake them, and then dump that out maybe a couple of times and get the little extra little beads of plastic out, and then it's ready to go. I don't recommend buying barrels that have stored other materials other than what I say chlorine dioxide, which is used for exactly that purpose, to keep them clean. I was teaching a class down here somewhere, and a guy came up to me after and said, where I work, we use a barrel of vinegar every single day, and we throw the barrels away. Why couldn't you store water in a vinegar container? I had to think about that, and I told him, other than the taste you might have, vinegar is a sanitizer. It's low pH, it's acid, not going to grow anything. That would be a good one to store water in. And he said, I wash them out, and I don't have a problem with the taste. And I said, great. So there's a few exceptions, but the chlorine dioxide, vinegar, things like that are something you could reuse them for. So that's what I do. I just repurpose them and reuse them. So you have to locate them where you're not going to move them, because they would be anywhere from 450 to 500 pounds full of water. And you can.
Pretty easy to tape a hose onto the end of your deal, though, and run it outside. As long as you get it suction, you can put it on your lawn, then you'll have to.
Exactly.
Right by the edge of the garage,
Yeah. You can. I recommend you might put one of these in your basement, one out in the garage, one out in the shed outside. So if there's an earthquake, you may not be able to get to your basement, or your garage might be gone. So I keep 10 of these outside. Under cover, not in the sun. I don't recommend you put them right in the sun. If they are exposed to the sun, just buy a tarp and put over them so the direct sunlight doesn't. And all it will do is maybe break down some of the plastics and get a little bit of a plastic taste, but they'll still be safe. Even as the hot, cold, the temperature changes, that might expand and contract a little bit from the pressure change, but it's still going to be good water. Yes.
Once again, you'll probably hit it, but what's the time span for how long it's good in those?
Thank you. On the handout, the back page, the question is on there, how long can you store water? Now, FEMA and Red Cross and government agencies say dump them out every 6 months. Those of us in the water that know a little bit about water say that is legal talk. That's not science.
CYA.
Yeah, that's them saying, well, if you tell them it'll be good for 3 years and they get sick after 2, they're going to sue us. So you can't say that. My contention is if you follow those 5 steps on that back page, if you have the proper container, it's clean, you put good quality. It's not on the back page. It's on the third page. Sorry, third page. And you put good quality water in there, and then you seal that up tight as you can get it. And you need a bung wrench to do that. So you always should have a bung wrench. And you seal that up as tight as you can get it. When I ran a water lab, people would call me and say, I wanna test my water to see if it's still good. And I'd say, well, you're gonna spend $20 to test 50 cents worth of water, so. And then I went to go to their home, my own little research, and I'd see how they stored it, and if it was a proper storage, I'd take a sample and go back and do tests. And I found water 25 years, stored 25 years properly, met all drinking water standards. Might have a little bit of a plastic taste, but you can get by with that in a disaster. So what I'm saying is, if you follow those five steps, you can store water a long time. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm not changing my barrels. I don't go out and do that. I used to say, how many of you change your water out every 6 months? And in all the classes I've taught, I've had one person raise their hand, and there's two, right? Okay, there's two. Well, you've been doing what they told you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
But if you do it this way,
That's how mine's just like that, so I'm not gonna do it now.
okay. Okay, if you've done it properly, so that's key. If you do it right. Now, if you go out there and open it up every year and stick your finger in and or something in there, say, think this is any good anymore? You know, now you've contaminated it, so now you have to start over. And I had a neighbor that I taught how to do this. He got 6 barrels and put them in his garage. He filled them up, and a year later he said, I want to test them. I said, okay, let's do it. So I went over, got a sterile test of his water, took it to my lab, I did a test, heavily contaminated. And I said, oh boy, let's go back. What did we do? And we went through the whole step. He did everything right. And I said, okay, what did you fill them with? And he said, that hose laying out there in the mud. And so I said, okay, that's the problem. Garden hose should never be used to fill them. They are not designed for drinking water. They have lead in them. They have no way to clean them and really sanitize them. So what you really need is a RV hose, which are normally look just like this, white with a green or a blue stripe on them. These are designed to be used with water. Hook up your RV, put it in there and you're able to drink it. These do not have lead. They're safe for drinking. So these should be filled with RV hose. So I've got a 50-foot RV hose that I paid $25 for. That's what I used to go around and fill up all my neighbors' barrels. And so a lot of them have them, yes.
Can I test my own water in a cheap way, or do I have to take someone like you?
You have to really go to a certified lab to find out. And that's the minimum fee is $20 to do it, which you do as a coliform test to see if it's growing any bacteria. And if it's negative for coliform, it means it's not growing hardly anything else. That's the standard test for all drinking water almost in the world now. And it's a $20 test minimum. So if you don't think you did it right the first time, do it over. Do it right. Because my neighbor contaminated all his barrels with his garden hose. And so that's not something you should be using.
So those come in 25-foot lengths?
They come in 10, 20, 25, 50, and 100s.
Okay.
Whatever
Just
you
buy them at
may
an RV
need.
place somewhere?
I bought mine at Emergency Essentials, but they're closed. They shut them down. I think you can see them at hardware stores.
Okay.
You could, they're probably online, yes?
Yeah, hardware stores and also at RV.
Oh, yeah,
stores
RV,
up-
yeah,
they
RV
have
places.
them.
And
You
so,
can still use the outside faucet though, you don't have to run it inside, right?
you can use the outside faucet. When I used to do testing for water systems, the old way was you'd have to go over and try and sanitize that, Dogs could be licking water off of them if they're dripping, so at the very least, or the very most, just take a little alcohol and clean it off first before you do it. But we ran samples from outside faucets a lot. We just flushed them a little bit, hooked them up, and rarely did we ever find a faucet that was contaminated if the water was good. Now this is a city water I'm talking about that's been treated. If you have a private well, it's different. Because private wells, the water is generally good for immediate use, but for storage, it should be treated. That's important because it's not sterile. It doesn't have chlorine in it, it's not sterile, a private well, so it should be treated after it's stored. And I'm gonna talk about that in a few minutes, so treatment, so. Okay, now that you got your barrels full, safe, and you got water you trust, how in the world are you gonna get it out of there when you need it? That's something you need to prepare for too. I've tried a lot of different things, and the one I have, oh, there it is. Thrown on the floor here, so don't do that. This seems to me to be about the easiest way to do it. It has a little ball valve on the end. They're designed for drinking water. And there are some that have these big tall ones, the siphon, and they have a little pump on them. And they're tall. I had one of those once. I bent it once and it cracked and it was no good. They're just so flimsy. I wouldn't trust them. They just, one little crack and they're not a siphon anymore. They won't do it. These are very substantial. It has a little ball in the middle, so you can put this in here and just pump it. And each pump, it pushes water up. You can do the old suck way like some people used to do with gasoline when they were young. But you can just put that in there and just bounce it like this, and you can just watch the water creep up there. Put your thumb over the end of it, as you know, when it gets up there. Put it down to a container like this, let it go, and the siphon starts. It just starts flowing. And that will fill up, this hose will fill that up in 3 or 4 minutes, 5 gallons, really easy. And then you can just, you know, I put water in this to show. Then you can just switch this over, take it in your house, set it up on your counter, and use it as your sink. Put it over your sink. You got drinking water ready to go. So you got to have something like this because you can't pick this up and lay it on its side and do it.
And how do you clean your hose out? I've noticed that mine gets flaky after a while. I've used it several times. You just put bleach through it.
I put bleach through it and let it sit in there for a little while.
Okay.
You know, you'd have to put it in this end and let it just flow through there, and then just hold it. And, you know, it only needs a couple of minutes of time with bleach to clean that right out. And then I would rinse it out with clean water after that. And then what I do is bag it up in a Ziploc. That'll keep any bugs from getting in or any contamination. It works pretty nice. And then store it right with your barrel.
Yeah, keep it close so you don't lose
Yeah.
it.
Where can you purchase that? Yeah,
Which
the little siphon.
I bought mine where I bought my water jug right there.
Okay.
I have been out searching because, like I say, I used to get mine from Emergency Essentials and from places like that, and so I started going out searching. I found one at Home Depot, and it had a tag on it that says, "This may not be good for water." It was mainly a fuel one. Many of them say that are designed for water, they're lead-free. If they say lead-free, that means a lot. I found a bunch of these at the Smithfield Implement, if you've ever heard of that. That's it's just they have everything in it. And I found 5 of these that they had stored, and I bought all 5 of them this week because I like to have them. But make sure you get one that's designed for water, for drinking. Yes.
House of Hose, some of those contractors that build hoses and stuff for people, you can also have them build that for you too.
This was the first one I ever had. I just went and got the tubing from the store, and I put a little brass fitting on it for weight. But with this, I have to suck it to make it work. But you can do the same thing with just that, and sanitize it the same way, but you're gonna have to suck it. But that's not so bad when you're gonna drink it anyway. You know, suck it out and get it started. You can, I don't know, put some alcohol on the end before you, I don't know. But then you can do the same thing.
Tastes better than gasoline, as I would guess.
What's that?
Tastes better than gasoline.
Oh, But these specifically also say they're designed for, it's marine tubing, so it's designed to put on boats and things and for drinking water.
One other question, I stored mine on the concrete floor, and then I got wise and put some 2x4s underneath them on both sides about halfway through. Is that better than putting them on concrete? If you don't have the wheel thing?
And I have that on my flyer, that says don't put them directly onto concrete. And I've talked with chemists, some say, that's stupid, it's not gonna hurt. I've had others say, yeah, that concrete's giving off gas and that could do it, and I say, hey, if you're doing it, spend an extra 50 cents and put a barrier between this and concrete. It can be a piece of untreated plywood, it could be some 2x4s, it could be 3 or 4 cardboard boxes, just so there's no contact with the concrete and the plastic. That's all you need, but I recommend that. And it's not as a fact, but it's a pretty good guess that it's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt, yes.
I was gonna say that in my home back in New York, where we lived, we had radon gas coming up through the concrete because our home was built
Through
on
the
top
cracks.
of a garbage dump. So I would put it on some wood.
I've tested a lot of homes for radon as well, and you can be in an area where you're gonna get radon coming through, and it could be absorbed into there. So, and it comes through the cracks. So,
Once the water's contaminated by radon, can you test it? Or is it too subtle to test it? The water?
you know, I don't know if radon would get into water through this or not. I don't know. And radon the test for radon is as a gas, not as a liquid, so I don't think you'd be able to test it. Yes,
So I guess the same thing goes for our little bottles down on the basement floor, get them off it.
oh yes, yeah, concrete anywhere.
Okay.
Concrete is constantly giving off, is always gassing off, no matter how old it is. They'd say, I'm not an expert, but they'd say it's always gassing off. And you don't want that gas in contact with that. So I cut a little piece of wood, a couple 2x4s, something like that, just to keep it. You also should put these where there's a container of gasoline sitting next to them. Or even in your garage, when you start your car up, that the exhaust hits that barrel. Put it on the opposite side, in the other corner, so that, fumes aren't hitting the barrel. So there's, common sense, just keep it safe. Don't put paint on it, don't stack paint or liquids like that on top of it. Put them in a different room, put it somewhere where it's just safer, okay? Does that cover it? I got a lot to tell you, okay? So that's home storage, very important. I believe it says on there how much to store.
Yep.
I think a barrel per person would get you by for 2 months. That's a lot. And one other thing, one time I got home from work and my wife says, guess what I did today? The Relief Society went out and got a truckload of barrels that they used to store a fruit concentrate in. And we got them for $5 each. Isn't that cool? And I said, well,
How many did you buy?
For fruit concentrate.
she bought 1 barrel. But we still have that barrel. I just wrote on it, not for drinking water. But you need water for a lot more things than just drinking. Even washing hands, you could put bleach in it, wash your hands, you can put it in your toilet tank to flush the toilet. So even if you have a barrel you don't trust, hang on to it, because that could be very useful, yes.
Could you do the same for rain barrels?
Sure.
Just use those for other things?
Oh, yeah, rain barrels
Would
are
you
one
have
for
to
great.
disinfect it or anything?
To go in the toilet tank, no.
Okay.
To probably
Washing?
Washing clothes, you're probably gonna put a little bit of bleach in anyway.
Okay.
I wouldn't worry about washing clothes with the detergents and other things that are in there. So, I think that covers the barrels and home storage, right? I have my other barrel right here with another way that you can, too tall, there we go. Another way that you can pump it out. This is a a filter that goes in the orange bottles here that we'll talk about, that removes bacteria, removes any microorganisms and a lot of chemicals. And you can use that as at point of use. You can just put this into a barrel like this little pump. It has 3 of these. You put 3 on for a big barrel, 2 for a smaller barrel, but you can just put that in, pump the water out, and if this is water that you know is clean, you can just pump it right out into a container like this, pump it right in there and drink it. If it's contaminated or you don't know, you can pop the filter in and do the same thing, and it goes through the filter right into the container and you can drink it. So we're going to talk about these in a minute. That's a nice way to pump out of a barrel. And if it's contaminated, no filter. If it's not contaminated, you don't need a filter. If it is contaminated, but you could use this for a rain barrel. Just pop it in there and go out and just fill it up through the filter, and you're on your way. So.
Is there any water that's really bad that wouldn't work on?
Chemicals, gasoline, but something off your roof would be fine. Out of most rivers, unless you've been warned that there's something in the river. Even radiation are fine particles that will be taken up in a filter. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute.
Some lakes have mercury now, they take mercury out?
Heavy metals come out pretty easy with a carbon filter. Right. All the filters haven't been tested for all these things, so they don't have a list this long of what they've tested for. But if it's larger particles, the heavy metals, things like that, lead and stuff, most of those will come out at a good solid carbon filter. Okay? Which I want to get into. So let me go down my list and see if there's anything I haven't talked about here. Well, disinfection. We haven't talked about disinfection. So chlorine is a marvelous thing to have for a lot of things. In an emergency, if you don't have anything else, put bleach in your water. It could save your life. If you have a chance to prepare, don't put bleach in your water because it can cause cancer and it can cause other things. There are better things on the market today than bleach to treat your water with. And I put a chart saying bleach there. If there's nothing else, use it. Long term is not a good idea. Short term, yes, use bleach. However, if you get bleach that says that has fragrances, the splashless, others like that, do not use those. Only use good old-fashioned hardcore bleach, the standard flavor bleach, because these make it useless. I bought this to just use as a demo, and then I read up on it and found out that this really isn't regular bleach. They put a thickener in there and it changes the chemistry, so it isn't as good a sanitizer. But for surfaces, this bleach is great. My daughter in high school had to do a science experiment at home. So we went out and I was working in the lab, and we swabbed all of our counters and our refrigerator handles, our toilet seats, to see how much bacteria was on it. Then we went back after we had those samples and bleached everything down and compared the results. I was blown away. We had 80,000 bacteria per square inch on many surfaces in my house. The refrigerator handle was the dirtiest place in my house, dirtier than the toilet seat. And after we sanitized with bleach, we had 10 bacteria per square inch. Went from 80,000 to 10. And we used about 3 or 4 cents worth of bleach, and it took us an hour. So I love bleach for a lot of things. And I like chlorine in my water. I want to see chlorine in my water until I'm ready to drink it, and then I take it out. Just before I put it in. I want it in my pipes in my house, I want it in my hoses, I want it everywhere. But when I'm ready to drink it, I put a filter on and take it out. cause I don't want it in my pipes, because it can be dangerous, so that's what I do. So, and I'll show you how I do that, it's fun.
And your little pump there can take the chlorine out, right?
Yes, it takes the chlorine out. It's the same as the bottles I'll talk about in just a minute. So, so we've got bottle to grab and go, we learned how to store it. Now, the third is have some way to clean water that you just gotta go pick up. You gotta go to the Jordan River to get your drinking water. What are you gonna do? When I retired from the health department 9 years ago, I was still telling people, don't let some salesman come in here and tell you that you can filter viruses from water, because it ain't gonna happen. It happened. And I testify that it happened because I have done the testing myself, and we now have the technology to do instant cleaning of water. And there's a lot of different things on the market. There's good things and bad things. The old ceramic filter, you've probably seen these. They probably saved many lives. It has almost like glass, a ceramic filter in here. You put it in the water, and you go out and you pump it, it drips down through here, and that water's ready to drink. And it's probably saved a lot of lives, but I tried one of these once. And you start pumping that, and in 5 minutes you got this much water. And you drink it, and you're now I have to start over again, you know. So they're very useful, and they've saved a lot of lives, but there's just better things than that now. Don't throw it away. You might need it if you got it. This is mine. And there's a lot of them that have come out now with carbon, because carbon is magical. Carbon takes out chlorine, it takes out bacteria, it takes out a lot of things out of the water. So you're starting to see a lot of these filters come out. And this one, for example, had a 1 million gallon guarantee. It came out and they started guaranteeing this just a few months after they built the filter. If you do the math, it would take 12.5 years to test this for 1 million gallons. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, putting water through it. They changed that, so you got to be careful what they say. It's not always true, and they backed away from that. But certification is significant when you buy something. To be certified, it has to be tested by a third-party agency to see if it's doing what they say it'll do. And you're not going to see too many of these products that are certified by NSF, National Sanitation Foundation, the American Water Works Association, or IAPMO, the International Association of Plumbers and Mechanical Operators, IAPMO. Those three are the only ones that can certify. If they're certified by one of those, breathe easy, because they're going to do what they say they do. So there's so many things out here. This is one. This is one that I've tested extensively. Almost broke it. And this is now the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints missionary bottle. They give one of these to every missionary that goes out of the U.S. or Canada. And that's this bottle. If you see all the writing on here, these are all the waters that I have drank out of with this very bottle and the filter in it. I drank out of water from the Amazon River, the Mississippi River in downtown New Orleans, the Columbia, Missouri, Colorado, Potomac. The Potomac was the dirtiest river I've ever seen. With the Washington Monument behind me, I got a picture. I had to put a pre-filter on top of that before I could pull it out, you know, but I still drank it. The Snake, Yakima, Bear River,